I realized part of what inhibited our initial growth in real estate was actually because of the energy we were approaching it with. We were working at getting away from something instead of finding something to go toward. When you change your attitude, your environment changes. And when your environment changes, the opportunities change too.
Hey everybody, pardon the quick interruption. Before you dive headfirst into this wonderful interview between myself and Chris Smith, it's Russell from the future here. Just wanted to let you know that this episode that you're about to watch was recorded about a year ago. And even though the information is 100% relevant and timeless, just understand that if we were talking about some market conditions and some numbers and things constantly change. Just wanted to give you a little perspective before you dove in headfirst into this wonderful interview. Frank, cue up the interview. Hey, Chris Smith, welcome to the show today. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, Russell. Thank you very much for having me. It's truly an honor to be on your show.
You're out in the beautiful home country you're in Saskatoon, is that correct?
Yeah, just outside, but we're Saskatoon.
Is it cold enough there for you?
Some would say, yeah. I think it was minus 30 this morning, about minus 40 with the wind. So we finally hit our stereotypical Saskatchewan winter.
Yeah. So how are those heat pumps keeping up out there?
Just barely.
if at all.
That's right. Yeah.
However, it's been quite an amazing winter this year. Like we're building some projects in Edmonton and you're building in Saskatoon, and our build team literally was punching holes in the ground and pouring concrete in between Christmas and New Year's, which is unheard of.
It's nuts, yeah. And we had a few people, builders that were, in talks with continually, and they had projects they had planned to put off, and now they're wishing they would have took the opportunity to get them pushed ahead, because as it stands right now with the cold snap we've had, they're likely to have to wait now for a few months to get started.
Yeah. Well, we had some projects that we had scheduled out that would complete in between March and July of this coming year of 2024. Our builder just came back with an update to everybody and says, okay, the one in March, we're ready to go February 20th. And we're just going, okay. And then the ones in June and July, we potentially can come up 6 weeks. And how often do you hear that is where a builder's actually coming ahead of schedule in many respects?
Next to never. Absolutely. Yep. That summertime one is, that's very handy timing for leasing up a new property.
Yeah. Well, we're very excited about, we've been very diligent on doing the build, and everything's been constructing. And now we're at the point where tenants are going to start signing leases and tenants are going to start moving in, and all these pro formas and all these, the projections and all this kind of stuff that we've been doing for the past year, no different than what you're doing, are going to come to fruition. But one of the cool things is I've seen over the past year is actually our numbers have gotten better over the past year. Rents have gone up. Some expenses, insurance has gone way up as well. But by and large, the numbers have actually gotten better than when we first did the analysis a year ago on things.
Yeah, it's exciting though, like you say, when you see all the hard work and the numbers and the due diligence and all of the behind the scenes work sort of come into life. Your idea turns to something real, and it's really neat to watch it take shape.
Yeah, and I know I'm not going to get any sympathy when I have this next comment that I'm about to make, is because many of the women that have given birth to beautiful children will laugh at me when I say this, but it's almost like giving birth to a child, of bringing a house across the goal line, if you will.
Yeah, sure. You and I can say that anyway.
Yeah, and I've chuckled many a time, and your wife would probably agree with me too, is that if it was up to men to give birth to childbirth in our day and age, which may be a hot topic, I don't know. We'll save that for another day. If it was up to men to give birth, our species would have died a long time ago.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we would have tried to hire it out anyway.
Well, or tried to hire it out, or there'd be no complications because the men would have solved it. They would have scienced the you know what out of it, that there would have never had to been ever childbirth. There'd be no pain. There'd be no nothing. There'd be none of that kind of thing, right?
There you go.
All right. Well, we can talk weather, and we're Canadian, right? So we've covered the weather, we've covered real estate, we've covered some partially family. All we need to do is talk about hockey a little bit, and we can really drop the mic and go home. So, are you a hockey fan?
I am, but I'll be honest. Since I've got a lot of other interests now too, so hockey's taken a bit of a back seat. I don't know much about what's going on with it. So I guess maybe they'll fire me and I'll have to leave the prairies at some point here.
You'll have to turn in your Saskatchewan card and
that's right.
You'll have to leave your Pilsner hat and your watermelon at the border and you won't be able to wear a Rough Rider hat anymore, do you?
No, that's right. And they'll chase me out with a hay wagon and won't let me back in.
That's right. Well, one of the things I most enjoy about putting on this podcast, and I mentioned this to you earlier, Chris, was just getting an opportunity to just sit down and, turn off our phones and just have an uninterrupted hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours plus conversation with somebody really cool that's doing things and just connecting with somebody maybe you hadn't had a chance to connect with. You and I have communicated a little bit over. We had, I think, one Zoom call. We had some emails back and forth and stuff. And I've just been watching from afar. I'm a fan of what you do. I'm a fan of who you're showing up as. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And I just said, you know what? I just want to have a conversation with Chris. I think he's got a lot to offer, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your story as well.
I appreciate that, Russell. That's kind words. I know you and I spoke a few years ago, very early at the start of when real estate started to become something more serious for me. And we've sort of probably run some parallel paths since then. And I really appreciate your commentary on that.
Oh, well, that's comes from the heart. And I only tell my truth. Okay. But with that being said, some of the people, a name of like Chris Smith, that can't be any more, than, plain Jane, if you will. Chris Smith is a Canadian guy. I'd be very interested in hearing some of the backstory and where you got started and what you're all about and what's led you up to this place that you are in your life right now.
Sure. I mean, I'm like you. I'm a farm kid from Saskatchewan. I grew up in near a small town that's got about 300 people. Stereotypical path. I left. I got into trade school. I became a heavy duty mechanic. Through that process, I got exposed to some opportunities in leadership. And at that time, I became interested in personal development too. And so I really took a shine to just improving myself and seeing where it took me. One thing led to another. I was working away at a mine site and I decided to buy a house. Needed somewhere to live. And there was these things that people had called basement suites. And I thought, well, that's a neat concept. Somebody else can be at home when I'm not there and they'll pay me a little bit of money to do it. And so I put my 5% down as a first-time home buyer on a modified buy level in Saskatoon. And my dad and I, being handy, we built a basement suite, and we built it to be everything I didn't ever have living in a basement suite as a young single guy. And I rented that suite out, and it was never vacant. It rented very well. I met my wife short time after that. She owned a house, had a non-conforming basement suite, moved in with me, and all of a sudden we're a landlord of 3 units. So all of a sudden we had some exposure to more of what the power of real estate could be, I guess. And from there, we moved out of the house we had to the house we're in currently now on the acreage, and then had 4 units. So we rented those for a while. I began studying about the same time you and I started talking about multifamily, about different opportunities in real estate. And it really took a couple of years of diving into that sort of world and taking action, but kind of always receding, to finally eventually going all in. And we sold those 2 houses, took advantage of a market opportunity, really pulled some equity out, and then started to transition into bigger projects, which is some of the stuff we're working on now that you've seen and that we'll talk more about, I'm sure, here. Yeah.
So really, and I think you're being really modest as well about some of the things you're doing too, and we'll unpack a lot more. But really, simple answer is you kind of organically just went into it. You got one. Hey, that worked, and you applied some of your skills. Hey, that worked, and moved out, and hey, that worked, and then you did the union between you and future wife, and then we just decide not to sell anything, and then you just slowly just started working out from there, this type of thing.
That's it. Yeah. Now, I mean, it's collected from that, created a realization of what's possible, I guess, and now it's a lot more defined as far as what our path is. And I think that happens for a lot of people. It starts. You stumble into it almost by accident in some cases, which was the case for me, more or less. And even with that, you can grow it into something that's really awesome, really powerful.
Yeah. And so your background a little bit more, a little deeper, a little going back a little further. Young Chris, if you will. So you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 37.
30. No, you're still a pup. Still a little pup there, my friend.
Getting a couple grays.
Yeah. Just wait till you get to my stage. I call it's wisdom. It's a color of hair color from L'Oreal called wisdom.
I like it.
So back in the day, you grew up in small town Saskatchewan, typical. That's right. Typical small school type of a thing. What was kind of the upbringing like for you then?
I mean, I guess it depends how far back you go. When I was young, like in 8, 9, 10 years old, we'd ride around like hooligans on our bikes around town, getting into trouble. And after that, moved out to the farm, and it was, spending time with a 22 rifle in my hands, exploring the creek in the woods behind the house, and really just exposed to a really humble lifestyle. Honestly, it was a good upbringing. I never wanted for anything, but we never had extravagance, or I didn't really know anything outside of that lifestyle. I'm struggling for a way to put context to it, but it was really, really just a humble upbringing.
Yeah. It's funny when people ask me the same thing as, how do you describe we just lived life, and our experience was going outside and living. Our experience was in the spring when the thaw happened and you had big giant puddles and there almost lakes that would come outside thing, and you built rafts and you had to have bread bags in your rubber boots, and you just went out and you went frogging, and you just lived life. Like a simpler way of putting it. I don't know how to explain it other than we just there was no video games or no jumping on iPads or something. We just went outside, and when it was time for dinner, Mom opened the door and said, "Russell, Chris, time for dinner." And you just come home and you have dinner type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very similar. I mean, we had 2 quarter sections together that all in all created a mile of ground along a creek bed that I had free reign over to roam as I pleased. And there wasn't a lot of traffic or anybody around to worry about. So it was, I don't know, I thought it was safe. Mom probably had a few panic attacks with me out past dark, all that kind of stuff. But it really was a neat way to grow up compared to, I think, what a lot of people get to do. Nothing's better or worse than another, but there's not a lot of people that have that opportunity anymore, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day. So now I live in a suburb of Vancouver in Coquitlam. Big city things. There's, some challenges that are happening. There's been some gangs, shootings and murders and all that kind of stuff. And my lovely wife looked at me and says, Russell, you have a terrible habit of not locking the door. And I go, yeah, I do. I go, because I grew up all my life of never locking the door. And I actually thought back to it, and I actually talked to my mom and dad. I never had a key to our family house because we never locked the door. And I remember when I first had to move to a real city, it was such a hard habit to break, is to actually leave the house and have to actually lock a door.
I never really thought of that. I didn't have a key growing up either. Yeah. I knew where we had one on the farm where it was hidden, but I never had one.
Yeah. So, it's funny how I got talking about that conversation is because I just got locked out of the house when I went for my walk. And then I came back and go, well, I got to change my system a little bit. I had to hide a key outside on the property somewhere with a little magnetic key holder and stuff like that. So just a simple way of life.
Yeah, it really was. It was, and it was a good thing. It built a strong foundation, built a lot of character, learned to work hard young too. I mean, I grew up on the farm. I learned to drive when I was 14. I started hauling grain at that time. And yeah, just learned a lot of work ethic through that.
Wow. Started driving at 14. You were slow.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
It's like many a time I could tell stories many of the time with, jumping out on going in the back roads with the 22 in the back window and dad's out there. We're going to go shoot some gophers, right? And stuff. And, had to stop at the Burr Hotel on the way by and stuff like
yeah,
a different way. And everybody's probably listening going, holy moly, listen to these rednecks talking the good old days here.
Yeah. If only they had that much fun though.
I agree. Okay. So, fast forward a little bit, when you and I had a conversation, and I'm interested to know as well, is when we had a conversation, how we first connected where you were listening to the podcast and you were driving from just south of Saskatoon and you were driving up to, I believe it was northern Alberta, and you had that long stretch and you're listening to the podcast. And then we connected. Are you still working in the mining? And are you still making that truck every week or two?
No, I'm not. And I haven't been for about a year now. Okay. That, again, like we talked about, we were looking for a means to an end at that time. It was a good choice to have gone up there, but I started to have a young family, and we're really looking for a way to get me home, to my wife and I, being we, really looking for at real estate to start to build that bridge. And looking back now, I realize part of what inhibited our initial growth in real estate was actually because of the energy we were approaching it with. We were working at getting away from something instead of finding something to go toward. And real estate still did help build that bridge. I'm in sales now. I have a commission-based sales role that offers a lot of flexibility in my lifestyle. I mean, I'm here in the afternoon speaking with you, and it allows me to conduct our real estate business really well. But once I got into that and I started really enjoying what I was doing more, our real estate took off faster. And it's really interesting how that stuff works. When you change your attitude, your environment changes. And when your environment changes, the opportunities change too. So it kind of all came in succession, but I kind of diverged a bit from your initial question.
Was great answer, by the way. I was just about to unpack a little bit more on that. So really it started with you held yourself to a higher standard, really. Mm-hmm. You changed your environment. You made a decision and you invested into yourself and invested into a skill set, meaning learning sales, and invested into a lot of things. Like, I have conversations a lot with people that have the exact same thing. Is we're trying to figure out how I can be home more often, how I don't have to be traveling, how I don't have to be there. But it's a difficult transition in some cases. It's the whole thing about how do we support our lifestyle? How do we put things on the table? And if you're not making money, there's a whole internal conflict and this is maybe just, sorry if it sounds sexist or anything, but men have an internal conflict if they're having a trouble supporting their family. Whether it's right or wrong, it's real. And I'm just being honest with it, because I have that challenge myself and had it for many years. Is if I'm not providing and supporting for my family, I feel useless as the man of our house.
Oh, absolutely. It's ancestral, right? It's a part of our DNA. It's been carried down for a long time. So it's not like we're just going to get out of that, despite the fact that modern ages, that might not actually be the case.
Yeah. And we know we're generations of hunter-gatherers of getting out and going. And we will talk about hunting too. I know how big that is a part of your life as well. Okay, so you transitioned into a role that you're doing some sales. What company are you now with?
I'm still with the same company, actually. There's more to the story, of course, there always is. But anyway,
take your time. Take your time.
So I made a jump in order to be home. I'd been with the same company with SMS Equipment for about 12 years at that time. And I had an opportunity to move home and start working for the Mosaic company at Kalonze. I'm sure you're familiar with the location. And so I took it. And it was a hard move for reasons like personal identity being tied to a career I'd held for a long time. But it was a good move. I think it was good that I did. I think it was healthy in the end. But what I found really is that I'd went from a leadership role with up to 80 people reporting to me, managing a lot of responsibility, a lot of execution of our business, to looking after half a dozen people on a mine site, and honestly being bored by 7:00 in the morning every day. Initially, I thought that would give me a lot of time to focus on real estate, to focus on growing our business. But I found I didn't really have that freedom still, because I was on a mine site and I was stuck there. And there's only so much you can do when the expectation, obviously, is that you're working for your employer. So the opportunity to go back to SMS in a sales capacity came up last fall, in the fall of 2022. And I went and talked to the sales manager, because I'm still fairly in the know with most of the people in the company because of my time here. And we decided it was a good fit. And so I threw caution to the wind a little bit, as much as I ever could, I guess, and jumped on board. It did help that we had sold some property that summer. And so we had a pretty good nest egg of cash. So jumping into a commission-based role was less frightening. We'd built a bit of a runway. Made it possible, I guess, really. And so real estate started this journey that way too.
Nice. Well, that's fantastic. So it's been a means to an ends, and you've been. I just remember from our conversation that we've had is that you're very strategic. You're very, and some people term this next one negative, but I think it's a positive. You've been very calculated in the steps that you've been taken, and very disciplined and rigorous in the process as well. And for somebody to be a hunter and to be a bow hunter, and you have the patience and you have those kind of things, it makes a lot of sense. It really does. And I love working and having conversations with high performing winners. Like people, a high performing winning person doesn't potentially ask, well, what's the cost of a coaching program? What's the cost? They look at, can this step impact me? Can I benefit from it? Will it improve me? Will it make that little bit of a minute difference to make a huge difference that I will take action from, and stuff like that? And that's one of the things I would say you have going away, and you have it in spades, if you will.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I agree. I think that if you're hung up on whatever the cost of a coaching program may be that could accelerate your life, business, real estate, whatever it may be, whatever your goals are, you're just looking at things from the wrong way, from the wrong lens, I guess. It's an investment, and I understand that people need to have the capital to do it, but it's 100% worthwhile. You take it seriously, treat it like it's your life, treat it like your life depends on it, because it does. It's just worth it. The self-development is the key to all of this in my mind.
No, I 100% agree. Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that backstory with me. It gives myself and my listeners a lot of kind of what makes you tick and what you're all about, and the journey, the price you've paid to get to the point where you are now. And so pivoting that, and I just want to set this up here, pivoting that conversation to, let me get the right screen here, pivoting that conversation into what's going on now, as we can pull up on the screen. I'm sharing just some of your Facebook feed here as well, Chris. And
yeah,
your Facebook, pardon the term, has got an awful lot of real estate porn on it, my friend. Meaning it's got beautiful houses and development of pictures, and you're doing a killer job on the videos that you're creating and stuff. And we'll unpack that in a bit. But I wanted to talk to you about kind of the process that you've been doing on building new construction properties, and I, selfishly speaking, I have a vested interest, and I want to learn from somebody who's doing the same thing as I'm doing, and I want to hear how you're doing about it. So there is a question there. The question is, give us a sense of the current project that you're doing, that you're just wrapping up on, and what led you into doing this kind of a project.
Sure. So currently, we're going to be closing in a couple of weeks here on a project in Saskatoon. It's 6 houses, side by each. They're all detached homes, 2 stories with basement suites. So a total of 12 rental units. We're approaching it as one single property. So they're separately titled, but we have one appraisal on it and 1 mortgage. So we're looking at it as a 12-unit multifamily property. And that allows us to utilize CMHC's MLI Select financing. So we've got an opportunity to go up to 95% loan to value on the property. And really, it takes a brand new property to it's a great cash flowing property that is brand new. It's a very stabilized asset. It's a very sought after rental class in Saskatoon. So vacancy is extremely low. Some other tidbits on that project are we're in the path of development. We're in the path of a future transit line. And so we know that there's added value there down the road. So big picture strategy, there's more at play, but really what it is it allows us to go from buying a single up-down duplex or a suited single-family home, depending where you are, how you refer to that, and buy 6 of them at a time and use financing that really allows us to cash flow the properties. And it also allows us to access these bigger properties because now we can maybe skip a couple steps here, but we're financing it in a way that doesn't require me to cover the debt. The property covers the debt on its own.
Yep. Okay. Well, there's an awful lot to unpack there, even in and of itself. And do you mind? Now, I 100%. If there's something you don't want to share, I'm 100% just say, yeah, that's, I use here's the term I use sometimes is somebody goes, well, where's the best neighborhoods to invest? And I'm investing in these areas. And I say, well, a master angler and a master fisherman never tells you his fishing hole. But if you don't mind me asking a couple things, these properties that you are buying, do you know what part of Saskatoon are they in?
So one of them's in an older neighborhood. It's in Mayfair.
Okay.
And the other is in a brand new neighborhood in the southeast called the Meadows.
So you have kind of a new subdivision, and then you have the other one would be like an infill in essence.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So appreciate that. Now, I know I've identified as I've been going through the process I'm doing, and I'm not trying, this isn't about me. I've identified 3 different ways to kind of transact, buy, build, stuff like that. But I'm more interested in how you're kind of approaching this. So let's take the new subdivision first, if you will. Okay.
Sure.
Did you buy the land? Did the builder buy the land? How's the original build? Are you doing construction financing, completion financing? How are you kind of transacting that property?
That was builder bought the dirt from the initial developer and planned the city block for completed homes to be purchased. So we bought completed properties, similar to buying a custom built home from a home builder.
Okay, so you've taken the strategy of, don't get me wrong, when I make this comment here, you've taken the simplest route, and in my opinion, simple is I'm doing all different tiers of the 3 ways I've identified, and don't get me wrong, simple is good, of just writing a contract to buy, get completion financing, and just take it over and go forward. That's like the simplest way to do it, right?
When you can do that and essentially just buy cash flow and equity, it makes a lot of sense. It's not as sexy, but there's some other caveats to that deal that make it a little bit more attractive than the typical simple purchase, buy and hold.
Okay, well, we'll get into it in a second here, but by and large, sometimes when on the deals that I'm doing, and now yours can be completely different, sometimes the simplest one is obviously you're paying the highest price for the simplest one, because in there's built a margin for the land to be sold to the builder. The builder's providing the financing. The builder's doing all this. You're typically paying the highest price. But my opinion is you have the least amount of BS. And if the numbers still work, why not? Like, you can buy a jug of milk down at the 7-Eleven, or you can go milk a cow out on the farm. Like, which one you want to do, right?
That's right. Yeah. And you're 100% right. I mean, we paid a premium for the product, and we know that. They're built to a high standard. I mean, we're hardy board exteriors and turf instead of grass. We're zero-scaped. We got vinyl fencing, all the stuff that you would do in an up-down duplex that you never want to touch for 10 years. Right. And that's the way we looked at this when we bought it. And
it sounds like you've been listening to a lot of my content over the years.
I've maybe consumed a few of the episodes. Yeah. So it really was. It was like we financed it. It was ready to put forks in the drawer when our tenants moved in. And even better than that, the builder has the property management company that we've hired, and they pre-leased it for us. So it was full on day one at possession. And we've been cash flow positive since month 1, day 1, right from the get-go.
Nice. Okay. So if I can just bookend this, the simple term, and we're talking the new subdivision first. The builder went in, bought the land from the developer. Then they put their own build team in place, and they're constructing it, and they know their numbers and everything. And then lo and behold, Chris comes along and says, yeah, I love that product. I love what you're doing. Did you know the builder at the beginning?
Yeah, we had, we've got a relationship with the person that works at the builder.
Yep.
And I'd spoke with them a couple of years before about potentially doing something. And so that's a good point for people too, is it can take a couple of years for some of this to manifest into something. And
then so they then sit there and they kind of, Chris came and said, and he was learning some things, and he learned about, this MLI Select multifamily residential financing, learned about kind of playing Lego and building these things out and stacking them together, and said, okay, let's put an offer together. And they probably gave you a price based upon 6. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
and probably give you a little discount. I would imagine a little bit of a discount or something on there. And then Chris bundles it up, goes shopping out to a good mortgage broker, and then gets some financing to buy it. Is that an oversimplification?
That's as streamlined as you could make it, but that is exactly how it goes. There's just a lot of details in between those things, of course.
Obviously, did the builder have the designs? Did you have input in the designs or any of that kind of stuff?
We had some opportunity. We didn't really take any because we're pretty satisfied with how they'd constructed it or how they were planning to. It's a more unique situation because the builder actually built an entire city block fashioned this way. And so ourselves and two other parties own the whole city block. And they did it that way strategically because these builders get approached by institutions. And so they did it that way with a third possible exit for these properties to be sold off to an institution at some point. And so it's more unique than usual in that way is that there's actually 38 of these homes on the block where we own 6. And so they kind of had a more prepackaged opportunity than you would typically find, which it really simplified accessing. At that point, backing it up, when we started looking at it, I was hoping last year to maybe buy our first multifamily at, $1 million property seemed like, okay, now we're talking. And our first project, that one that we closed on, was $3.3 million. And so it really made something like that start to seem a lot more achievable for us. And the numbers just made sense.
Yep.
So despite the fact that individually the houses look like a higher priced product, the numbers just flat out work. And
what are you paying for those 6 suited houses if you don't mind me asking?
Per house?
Yeah.
They were about $560.
$560? Okay.
That's done. Now, garages, fencing, everything.
Now, for listeners across the country, that's not 1.5 million. that's $560,000 for a completed house, all done, landscaping done, everything done, and
tenants in it,
and that also tenants in it, and that also includes GST in there as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's from a standpoint of somebody from Saskatoon would be sitting and go, 560,000. Oh my goodness, that's so expensive. Somebody from where I live, I had an email this morning that was sent to me on a motivated seller, 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in Vancouver for $580,000.
No kidding. Yeah. It's all about perspective, and it pays definitely to have your head up a little bit and be looking around and not get married into your local kind of paradigm, I guess, the thought that it's expensive and miss an opportunity like this because you don't see it. So it's nice to be connected with these bigger groups and see what other people are doing around the country so you can recognize value.
Now, and then, so, okay, 560, what is the house and suite rent for on a gross basis?
They are about 3,600. 3,600
per up-down unit. Does that include
the full structure? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you include utilities?
Nope.
Tenant pays utilities.
Tenant pays utilities. Yeah.
Are they separately metered?
They are, with the exception of water. So there's the basement tenant pays a water fee that's credited to the upstairs tenant.
Yep. So 3,600 times 6 is 21,600, and if it's the same as 60 times 6. So you're paying $3.3 million in change, and you're getting $21,000 in gross revenue from it.
Yeah, there's a little bit more than that.
In simple terms, right?
For sure. We've got some parking fees and associated pet fees and stuff like this that we can talk about as we talk more about MLI Select financing and how that worked out. I don't want to give away all the tricks, but we can dive in a little.
How if you understand how to present the numbers to the bank, you'll be quite surprised, and especially if your mortgage broker understands how the game is played, in essence. Now, I can agree or disagree about the way they present it as parking fees and parking pads and this, that, or the other. I can agree or disagree with that. But at the end of the day, if the lender uses it as an acceptable income source, and they're the ones providing the financing on it, I will say, yes, thank you. Right. Let's present it that way.
Right. That's right. It's, I don't want to sound like we're trying to get away with something or anything like that. I think it's fair and above board. But you have to watch the context and how it's perceived, because some people can take it the wrong way. Absolutely.
No, 100%. We're not doing anything unethical. You're learning the rules of engagement and you're playing the game, and it's 100% transparent and above board, and that's the way it is. And I'll just give you another example. This is just one that we used to do, well, we still do, but our garages and garage suites, typically you only have to have like a 4-foot apron off the back alley to that. That was the typical way. We would apply for a variance to get another 12 feet, push the garages closer to the house, and we'd have a full 16 feet of parkway leading into the garage. Now, a beautiful thing in Edmonton is that's now acceptable to do. You don't have to get a variance anymore. It's just part of the bylaws. Think about this for a second. If you have a parking pad outside, a covered one inside, and you have 4 of them and 4 exterior, you now have 8 parking pads. And the way the bank analyzes it, they will let you charge an allowance for parking for those kind of things. So, and then we usually put 2 parking pads on the 2 sides of the garage as well. So in essence, we've created 10 parking pads that can create anywhere between $50 to $100 each, which then when you add all that up, it helps with the NOI, it helps with the loan to cost and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So maybe maybe I shouldn't be sharing all these things, Chris.
No, you should, because honestly, there's not a bit of this that's secret, and there's not a bit of it that's not already out there published somewhere. Yeah. So I really don't mind sharing any of it.
I'm teasing.
And it's out there for people to go do it. I mean, get after it. There's lots of opportunity. Yeah,
and just wait until you see what maybe will happen in Saskatoon if they start opening up the densification even more. Like in Edmonton, that same place that you described, house with basement suite, I would be able to add a garage suite to that too. Where that same 6 block that you had, I could get 18 units on it.
Right. I see that. And I can see it probably coming here. They're starting to move. They move very slowly. You know how the Saskatchewan market is. But they've removed some parking bylaw, I guess, some strictness in the parking bylaw to allow for different things. And so I see that as an indicator of starting to shift in direction that way.
But I'm also a very big believer, and a lot of people hear that and go, oh, let's jam as much as we can into one, and let's put 27 units on 150 by 150 lot. And, just because you can doesn't mean you should as a first part. I always start with the tenant profile, the tenant experience, and then I work my way backwards. And we even had a design where we could have put 8 units on a mid-block lot, and we just chose to not do it because it would just make some dungeons of some rental properties. And we'd forever be fighting. The units would be smaller as opposed to having big, giant 1,800 square foot semis that have 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, and just, I would much rather err on larger units, better tenant profile, and fewer.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about optimization that way, right? And you've had rental properties long enough to know those things about your tenant profile, about what you want your ownership experience to be like, about what you want to happen when you see rent. In the rental market we have right now is extremely strong. Doesn't mean it always will be. So you don't want to be the first one to start to lose tenants when the market starts to shift. Yeah. And so you build a property with that stuff in mind. And as you've talked about, those are all things that you'd consider. So much the same on our end. We like quality units that produce more revenue, that are going to stay full longer, rather than trying to squeeze somebody into an oversized closet to get an extra $600 a month.
Yeah. And I've walked into many, the big thing kind of where I'm at is kind of the townhouse model, townhouses, and you stack them on one lot and stuff. But some of the inner lots, the inner units are, and now you have to have one window for the bedroom, and some of them are 1 bedroom. And that's the only window the entire place gets, the only light that place gets. The units that we do, we minimum 3 windows. They get 1 in the front, and then they have 2 bedrooms in the back. They get at least 3 windows, and that's on the interior ones. And the exterior ones, you can actually potentially add some more as well. So it's key for parking. It's key for, having those 9-foot ceilings. It's key for the light. It's key for the tenant experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that tenant experience is really what drives your revenue.
Yep. Yeah, most people sit there and go, yeah, it looks great, and here's what I can get on rent. But if you're fighting every year with tenant turnover and you're wondering why tenants are leaving after 1 year and over and over and over again, and lo and behold, after 2 tenants, 2 years, you got to put some splash and dash, some paint and stuff like that. All those kind of things add up.
That's right. It does. It hits and depending on the management you have in place, if you're not self-managing, lease up fees are a thing. Some people are starting to charge a lot more. And that can really eat into your bottom line. Yep. So it's just plan for it. Plan with the end in mind. Yep. Think about the living experience, right? We're not just on spreadsheets here. We're dealing with people.
Yeah. You actually have to go out and you actually have to experience the property. And you know what I do, and I haven't done for a while, is I actually go spend a week, a couple nights in some of the places, just from a standpoint of, it's funny. I spent once in one of my townhomes that I was in, and I'm sitting there going, I should have known this, but I didn't know. I'm sitting there going, there's a light switch in the wall, but there was no light fixtures. And this is like kind of typically an 80s design, is there was no ceiling lights and anything. So you needed lamps. And I was sitting there going, I didn't have anything there. I had no lamp. I go, well, how much of a pain in the butt would that be if you didn't have a lamp? And this kind of a things too, right?
That's right. Little things. Yeah, and that's a good, I mean, if you can find the time to do that, that's great, because you really settle in and get to understand the experience there and find those little things that can make all the difference in somebody looking for a new place or staying in yours.
Yep. Okay. So back to when we'll talk the 6 new builds, and then we'll talk about the infills in a little bit here. So you had 21,006 and you had 3.3 million and change for the purchase. Bundle it up. You went to a good commercial mortgage broker. Do you mind sharing who you use?
That project went through Canada ICI. Okay. The current project is through Green Birch Capital.
Yep. Yep. Many of you will know Nadeem and the Green Birch team. He's been on my podcast. They understand what's going on. They understand how to do it. And Nadeem used to be with Canada ICI. I don't know if he let you know that, but they understand what's going on. They're fantastic as a process. Okay. So we're still talking about the first 6. You went in. What kind of terms did you get in on the mortgage? What did you end up at the end? What was your ceiling rate for your certificate of insurance? What were kind of the terms you got on that loan?
So initially, what we required with the builder is to put a 10% deposit. So we came up with the capital for slightly more than 10% down. We went 10% plus what we figured for closing fees. And we put together $400,000 for our capital to go buy this property. And we ended up going to a 95% loan to value in the end. So I think we were $167,000 in actual down payment equity. Then our associated fees, everything else that comes in. I mean, we had a mortgage broker fee. We've got an appraisal. We've got ESA. We've got all the commercial stuff. That stuff tallied up to in the neighborhood of, with legal, probably 60,000. And then the interesting thing that happened, so we ended up, we got 10-year fixed rate at 4.1%. But 4.1 was our ceiling rate. And the bond market last summer did some interesting things. If you're not aware of that, you can look back. I'm sure you can figure it out. But the commercial lending rates are tied to the Canadian mortgage bond, and it fluctuated a lot last summer. And what it did is it actually put our rate at about 4.5, 4.6. And so what then we were required to do is actually buy down that rate to the 4.1 ceiling that our COI issued. Yep. So that cost us $110,000. And it would have cost us that in the term of the deal anyhow. So it's not lost money, but it cost us that up front. And if you're unprepared for that or didn't have the capital in hand to deal with it, it could pose a problem for you. So that's a word of caution, is to watch that kind of thing and maybe give yourself some buffer if you're looking at a deal like this. Yeah.
I tell most people to be prepared for, just be prepared for at least 10%, at least. And if you get anything back at closing and anything kind of stuff, it's just truly the cherry on top.
That's right. And we ended up, we closed the property. We had, so we put a bank account for this property. It's got its own bank account. It's got a corp on title, all this stuff. And in that bank account, when we took over the property, I believe we had just about $40,000 in the bank for that property, which is a nice buffer. It sounds like a lot of money if you're coming from the single family space, but 40,000 can get eaten up really quickly in a multifamily property. We've got, if we have an insurance claim, the deductible for a certain classification of claim could cost that much money or more. So yeah. It's these things you want to be aware of as you get into operating a larger property.
Well, one mortgage payment is better part of $12,000.
$12,500. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, especially when you get the keys handed to you and there's not a tenant in place yet, and in 30 days you've got a mortgage payment coming out, that goes pretty quick.
That's right. Yeah, it starts to disappear pretty fast.
Okay, so there was and that's one of the things I tell people in this world of doing these kind of things is a lot of people, single family residential, you're dealing in lots of certainties. Like, for example, you know your price that you're buying, you write a contract. When you go get your mortgage qualification, you know the interest rate, you know the term, you know your payment. You have a lot of certainty in that. In this realm, you're dealing in a lot of variances, and you're dealing in a lot of tolerances and ranges. Like, for example, you go and you apply for this and you get this thing done, but when you do lock in your interest rate, lo and behold, it was significantly higher. So there's a little bit of risk there, right? Mm-hmm. But even at 4.5% locked in interest rate, that's ridiculously good compared to somebody who's paying 5.6 and change and stuff like that now.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was, that one was 4.1 and we locked it for 10 years.
Right.
Now, I mean, should the market drop, the interest rate market drop substantially, we could bear the cost of breaking that mortgage and redoing it at a lower rate. It might be beneficial on a multiple 7-figure mortgage, or we just know that we're operating safely for 10 years and take our cash flow and enjoy the ride.
Okay, awesome. So 50-year amortization, 4.1 locked in. It cost you a little bit extra down payment capital in order to get that. What's your best estimation on these the new subdivision 6 units that you had to buy? What was your best estimation of how much capital you had to put into it on a $3.4 million acquisition?
The actual acquisition cost was $350,000 for a good round number.
Right, so it's just right around that 10%, and that included fees, that included broker fees, and environmentals.
That's everything but the cash in the bank left over that we had to operate with. Okay.
So $350. Okay. So including the cash in the bank, it was like $390, give or take. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So it's pretty much in line exactly with what I'm seeing. However, there are opportunities if you don't have to buy down the rate and you can get a good rate and stuff like that. You potentially at closing, if you didn't have to put that $110,000 extra down to buy the rate, you would have got a check back at closing for $110,000.
That's essence. Right. Yeah, that's exactly. Well, we got a check back for the 40 that we put into the bank. It was our money. It was held in trust, but it got redistributed to us from the lawyer, obviously.
Yep.
But that 110 would have been there with that. So we would have actually had the opportunity, if we hadn't had to buy the rate down, to close this property for $250,000.
Nice. Love it. Okay, so these places, if I've heard correct the story, have closed and they're closed. Tenants are in there and everything like that?
Yeah, we closed on September 1st. They were fully tenanted at that time. And it's been an enjoyable experience so far.
Oh, how did you get tenants upon closing? Did the builder start leasing it up?
They did. Yeah. The builder has their own management company. They've got their own portfolio that they manage. And so they offered a very favorable rate to look after these properties for each of the investors involved.
And I would imagine they maybe gave you a little bit of a later closing time too, to kind of time the full lease up done at the same time too.
Yeah, that's right. It paid to have that in place, as far as, especially being the first deal, it made it really, really simplistic to work through the process when they're vested in the other end of the project as well.
Okay. And based upon your best estimation, or if you have the number to the penny, I'd love to hear that too. What are the property's cash flow on a ballpark?
Well, we just did our first quarterly distribution. Do you want monthly or yearly numbers?
Well, why don't we start monthly and go from there?
So they're cash flowing about $3,300 a month
for all the six, for the 12 units, six. Okay.
Yeah, for the total property. Yeah.
And then obviously, did that hold for so about 3,300 per month?
That's what we've averaged for 4 months since September to December.
Just shy, and that's real cash flow, like
real cash flow. We've got reserves built in. We've got vacancy reserve, maintenance reserve, or capex really is what we're reserving for.
Yeah.
And our expenses paid.
Nice. Yeah, and those numbers are falling in line pretty close to what some of the things our 6-unit ones that we're doing are in between 14 and 1,800 per 6 type of thing. So they're pretty much in line. That's on our pro forma. Like our first closing happens in March, and then we have 4 closings happen between March and July, and those are my numbers. But here's the beautiful thing: is as I'm doing the research, the rents have gone up since that. Have you experienced the same thing in Saskatoon?
That's right. And when we bought these two, what we perform we beat our rents by anywhere from $100 to $200 a month in the units that we could do that in. And so they've continued to go up since then. When we have leases come up for renewal, we're actually going to have an opportunity to increase rents in some units again by another couple $100.
Yeah. Well, let's think about this for a second. So let's say it was 200 per 6 on next increase, right? 200 times 6 is 1,200 times 12 is 14,400 divided by, let's say it's just a 5 cap, right? As an example. Yep. There's $288,000 of net worth of building evaluate. Now, obviously there might be some costs that have gone up and blah, 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 but there's a solid $250,000 of valuation increase there.
That's right.
Did you get
that's awesome.
When you got your appraisals done up front, did the appraised values come in under your purchase cost as well?
No, they came in slightly over.
Okay.
So we bought some equity too.
Yep.
They appraised at $3.5 million for that property. And so we had about to the dollar, it was about $170,000 in equity based on the appraisal at that time. And so now, with some rental increases and stuff like that, if we reappraise, I suspect we'll have actually probably $300,000 or $400,000 in equity, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they're saying these new builds and this infills and that stuff, the math just doesn't make sense. And I was just about to sit there and go, I was about to really get into it. And I said, my comment was, yeah, you know what? You're right. For you, it won't make sense. So does the math make sense for you, Chris, on these properties?
The math makes sense for me. Yes, it does. It's not the classic value add play that's been popularized for so long. But I'm really not surprised to see Russell Westcott interested in it, knowing what your previous 3-2-1 approach and suited single family houses was about. It's that on steroids. It's maximizing that opportunity in my mind. And so when you can go buy an almost 10% cash on cash return as we're cash flowing today, and in a property that's in a good neighborhood that's going to increase in value over time, I just don't know why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And to be honest, I've just pivoted my 3-2-1 free program. Instead of, it's now 18 at a time, right?
Yeah.
It's like let's buy 3 of these projects in 15, 10 years from now, sell 2, keep 1. And if you have one 6-unit property, or in your case, one 12-unit property, all things being equal, and let's say your mortgage payment went away, your cash flow would go up by $12,000 a month.
It would, yeah.
Right? If the mortgage was gone and paid for and stuff like that, that's the simplest way to just say that mortgage payment is gone.
That's right. This would turn into $15,000 a month. A
$15,000 a month pension plan, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm 100% all over this. And I do have that conversation with people as some people sit there and go, well, let's just go buy something old and refurbish it and do stuff like that. And I said, you know what? There's no right or wrong answer. What I look at it from is the following: is at the end of the day, what you want is a good performing cash flow asset that you have little of your own capital into it. It attracts good tenants and it's able to perform cash flow for the next 7 to 10 years. Okay. there's two ways you can go about doing that. You can go buy an old apartment building and go through the entire process for a year, 2 years, kicking people out, cash for keys, renovation, HE double hockey sticks. You can go through that entire process to then refinance it. And you have to finance it twice and 3 times. And you have to pay so much in fees to eventually 2 years later, you've got a normalized performing asset that will go forward. Okay. Or you could just design it in advance and do all that work in advance. And the day you take possession of it, it is normalized. It's got the tenants in the place. It's got amazing finance and it's cash flow from day one. Like, which one would you want to do? I'm okay with either.
That's right. And I'm the same way. There's a lot of ways you can invest in real estate. There's no wrong way, pending it's all legal. There's no wrong way to do it. And this is my chosen path. And it fits my life and what we want real estate to do for our life. And I think that's important that people just take stock of that. So for us, this is great. It provides the cash flow that we want. It's minimal impact once it's acquired. And we just get to enjoy nice brand new property and typically a higher tenant profile too that has caused us less headache.
Yeah. And it's interesting on black and white. I was just analyzing some numbers on some of my newer properties, like not these new multiplex that we're doing, some suited houses, some newer stuff. And I had to actually look at the number twice because it didn't make sense at first. I looked at it. My maintenance bill on 12 units. My maintenance bill on 12 of them was $0. And I said, that can't be for the entire year. I said, that can't be right. We've got to have spent something. And the manager said, no, we spent nothing. I go, okay. And we had 0 vacancy for an entire year.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
On one of my older properties, 1 month, I would have $6,000 to $8,000 of maintenance and things and vacancies in 1 month. They could say 10 grand per property is not unheard of.
That's right. And that's actually, that's what I mentioned earlier, that we're reserving for maintenance is really that we're reserving for capital expenditures, because we know in 10 years time, we're going to have some furnaces and stuff that we may need to replace. So we need to be ready then. But what we're actually expecting to spend in maintenance is near zero. We do have some money set aside in the event there's non-tenant caused issues, but most of it's warrantable. Yeah. And new home warranty. And then, so what I tell people is my typical thing I'm dealing with partners is I look to potentially sell between 7 and 10 years and pass all that maintenance on to the next owners of that. That's right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
You learn a few things over the time and I appreciate you sharing all that as well. Okay. So that was the new subdivision, the infill. What you're doing, has it been kind of rinse and repeat, or what's been something different with the infill project?
It's different in that the builder didn't plan to sell it the way we're buying it. They planned to take these houses to the single family market and sell them one by one. The realtor got a hold of it who understood this opportunity and sold it to the builder kind of preemptive to us picking it up. So when we got involved, there had been some conversation at that level already. And so it was building trust with the realtor that we could actually pull through and close, despite a longer timeline with CMHC than just going to, say, the bank downtown and getting a mortgage to buy the house. It's going to take longer. So they needed to be comfortable with our ability to actually pull it off, which we can, and we've proven that to them. Otherwise, the difference is being, it's more like, it's not quite as ready as turnkey as the first project was. So there's some things like we need to put appliances in it. We need to put window coverings on. We're going to have to landscape the properties in the spring, and they're not going to be tenanted on our acquisition of them. Sorry. And so there's a little bit more work involved that way. Now we also were able to get significantly lower pricing than our first project. That has some to do with the type of build and the area of town that they're in. So we're paying $2.5 million for these properties, but they're nearly renting for the rent difference is not anywhere near the difference that the price difference is.
Right.
And so we're going to substantially improve our cash flow on those properties, I believe. We're just starting leasing right now.
Nice. Well, I hope they turn out very well for you. And you're doing a perfect progression as you kind of started at the back end, and you're just kind of working your way back the chain, if you will, to eventually get that. And then to the next one, you might find a builder to go and buy the land. You then do the construction financing, completion financing for them. And then the next step of that is Chris and your wife's Rebecca, is it correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You and Rebecca are going to go buy the dirt and then
It's very possible.
buy the dirt, sell the dirt to yourself. And then you then have the construction financing and completion financing all there. And you just get a construction contract with the builder.
That's right. Yeah. That idea hit my head about a year ago, about the same time we were working through these. The first set, I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was another set that was just ready to buy because these just work so well? That's when we found the second set. They just happened to be there.
Yep.
And then about that time, I started realizing there's some advantage if you understand the process and are okay with the risk to doing the build process yourself.
Yep.
And so we're definitely exploring that for future opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% convinced myself if I want to go the road of hiring construction manager and getting into the construction business. Especially, at the end of the day, it comes down to the construction team and their capacity and stuff like that.
That's right.
I like to let them be in their own lane, and by all means, pay them what they ask for because they earned every dollar of it.
Well, that's right, and we talked about our new area project being a premium price point. And really what that premium price point did was defer the risk onto the builder. We paid a premium for them to shoulder all the risk. And in the process, I know they had to move utility lines and different things like this that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for a city block, mind you, not just for our 6 houses, but can you stomach that? Can you shoulder that burden as a developer? That's something I think that is worth considering before you venture into starting your own construction company. And I look at it more like partnering with a good GC, a good builder who maybe you can find a building partner who wants equity in your deal. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can find somebody who's got a reasonable GC fee, whatever it is, right? There's so many different ways to approach it.
Or even if your builders are well funded too. Like I'm blown away how unbelievably powerful it is to have a well-funded builder to be able to shoulder a lot of this kind of stuff too, and not just a fly-by-nighter that does 1 or 2 deals a year. They do 30 or 40 of them a year type of thing.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you will never look at a property again the same way. When you go take a look at your place and you sit there back there, oh look, there's a telephone pole in the middle of my kind of on the back lane. That right there to me is $80,000 to move that.
That's right. Yeah. Lessons learned, right?
Yeah. You sit there and you go, okay, where are the services coming in from? Where's the power pole? Power pole's on the other side of the lane. Okay. Awesome. That's good.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's right. You learn along the way, right? You never get it 100% on the first try. There's things that you learn. And you alluded to that, like learning in steps. I get to learn a little bit more each time we take one of these on.
Yep. Nice. So with that being said, what's next for you, my friend? What's the next kind of, like you're at a point right now, it sounds like you're just at the finish line of getting lease up on the next project, and you're doing that.
Correct.
So I would imagine you're getting a little itchy and you're ready for something next. What's the next hurdle for you?
Similar. We're looking at some more basically of the same opportunities in town here, in other areas of town. We've got a meeting next week with another builder that's got some property that they're planning to build anyway that will suit the model. And so we might be able to take those on depending on, we can work with the builder and we can come to terms on pricing and that sort of thing. There may be opportunity to take our first project and turn it into a bigger project. There's only so much I can say about that right now, but it's in the works. And then looking at, really what else comes our way as far as opportunity to take this model further, whether it's partnering with somebody to do some of the infill stuff similar to what you're doing, where we can get a little more customized on a 50 by 150 or a 70 by 110 type of a lot in a mature area, or whether we can find more new development, new area type of property to acquire.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is yes. But
yeah,
but anyways,
it is.
I was about to just give you a big compliment. Is sometimes, my question was a bad question. Is what's next? What's new? And you answered it perfectly and said, "Yeah, we're just going to do more of what's working. Why would we want to reinvent the wheel and have to do what we're doing is working very well? And how many properties do you want for less than 10% down payment that are getting a 10% cash on cash return? How many do you want of them?"
All of them. Yeah.
As many as you can get, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I tell you, I've just been fully engaged in our conversation, and I've been messing up here, Chris. I'm just like sleeping at the switch. You're just bringing the fire here today, my brother, and it's bringing the bombs like crazy. Like, and don't get me wrong, it was 100% on me for not hitting the right button here, because I'm just get so excited about these conversations, and I love.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely.
I love hearing good people winning. I really do. And you and Rebecca, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting your lovely wife yet, but from all indications, she is amazing, and you guys are good people. So
I appreciate that. And likewise.
I did want to touch on, and you got a moment? You're still good for a little more?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. 100%.
I did want to touch on your hunting. You know, in some cases, hunting is very in vogue at the moment, but also it's very polarizing. All at the other end,
absolutely.
It can be on the other end. Is, you know, you get everything from Bambi killer to Neanderthal to whatever type of thing. We were talking before we started. Hunting is a big part of your life. How does that fit into everything you're kind of got going on?
It is, and it has been. It's something I learned from my granddad when I was very young. When I was less than 5 years old, I started tagging along with him. So I learned a lot about nature, about the way the natural world works, and about how we fit in. And really, hunting for me is an escape. It's a place where I go to nature for something that's quiet, for time to escape from the busyness of life and sort of reconnect. And it's also a way to challenge myself. I hunt primarily with a bow and arrow. I hunt on foot a lot. From a tree stand and stuff sometimes where it demands, but primarily in the mountains, in the forests in northern Saskatchewan when we're not out west, hunting elk, hunting moose, hunting mule deer, hunting whitetails with a bow and arrow. And it's a mentally challenging endeavor. It requires a lot of discipline. And I guess it's just sort of in that way, it's strangely parallel to the rest of my life, because those things, those are transferable things in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, and I know I'm about to say that you're probably very familiar with Cameron Hanes, obviously.
Yeah,
and some of those people that do that hunting, like Cameron Hanes, is one of the most hardcore people. He and David Goggins can have a competition of who's the most crazy hardcore person at the same time. But it really comes down to, there's a firm belief that I have, is how you do something is how you do everything you choose to do. Okay, I added the you choose to do, because most people hear that and they think they have to do everything. No, you don't. It's how you do something is how you do everything that you choose to do. And by choosing to do something difficult, it reconnects to a lot of the other things you're doing all at the same time. And you're a big believer in personal development. How does all that kind of fit into this conversation of real estate we're talking about?
I guess really when you boil it down, it comes back to persistence. And it comes back to the will, your determination, and having a goal that you actually desire to achieve. So real estate's great. I think if you pursue real estate just because you think it's an easy button to change your life, you're probably going to have a lot of tough times. If you pursue real estate because you actually enjoy it, but you also appreciate what it can do for your life if done properly, and you've got a goal that it fits into. If real estate isn't the goal for me. Real estate is a tool to achieve the goal. And it changes how I look at things.
What is the goal for you?
The goal for me is in part, we'll use the buzzwords, we'll use some generational wealth. I want to have an ability to hand things down to my kids when I leave. But really, the goal for me is a continual pursuit of growth for myself. It's newer. It's better me all the time. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. That quote is really it. So I guess it's a perpetual expansion of myself, and what I'm capable of is a big piece of it. But along the way, I don't want to get to where life rules me, I guess. I want to be able to be in control of my life, in control of my time to a degree. And I want to be in pursuit of something that I feel is worthwhile for me and not just for somebody else.
Nice. Well, that's very, very brilliant. And I know you're going to crush it. Like everything else you've put your mind to, you have just done it. And I'm also seeing a lot of in you about giving back and helping and support others and sharing your journey, just no different than what we're doing right now, but also coming from a standpoint of paying it forward to the next generation. Is that something that you're doing like on your social media and the posts you're doing? Is that kind of what you're doing there?
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously it's changed from me posting twice a year when I get out hunting in the fall to posting a few times a week about this kind of stuff. So it sure looks different for people who know me or have known me, I guess, knew the old me. But yeah, it is definitely a part of something that I want to do. And a lot of my, we'll say so far success in real estate, what we've been able to do is because of the growth I've had as a person and because of my willingness to listen to guys like Russell and a few others in the industry who've helped me understand what's possible. It was still up to me to develop myself to go and take action and do that stuff. And so I'd like to pay it forward, like you say, and help people do that. I've started doing a little bit of coaching on my own in the personal development space. And in light of that, and in light of my experiences and what I share, people who are into real estate are attracted to me. And so a lot of it has to do with real estate. So I'm willing to share what I know in real estate. I call that the freebie, and the work on you is the not freebie. But that's part of what I'm doing. I am building a bit of a coaching program in the personal development space that way, a group coaching program designed around that, with a component of real estate, I suppose, along with it.
Yeah. Nice. Well, congratulations. I wish you all the best on the going forward with that. And are you having a hard time? And I'm just asked this question because this is something that I had a hard time with, and I'm projecting me onto you for a second. But did you have a hard time making that shift into Chris posting 2 hunting pictures a year to Chris posting twice a week, and the whole imposter syndrome and all that kind of BS?
I'm still having trouble with it. And to be fair, even articulating the coaching platform in that business and that is still a challenge. And that's been 6 months or more in the making at this point. And so that's what I talk about when I talk about being able to be willing to grow personally. It's a continual thing for everyone. And I know that, and we're all at a different place, but it's not easy. And yeah, getting online and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, seeing what, at some point you had your first podcast.
Yep.
And biting the bullet and doing it is just where it starts.
Yeah. Chris is sitting there going, yeah, get me in backcountry mountain territory and quartering an elk and flipping him over my shoulders and packing him out. That's nothing compared to shooting a bloody video for 30 seconds.
That's right. Yeah. I could carry a 100-pound backpack through the mountains for 4 miles and I'm there all day, but I'm okay with it. But yeah, a 90-second reel on Instagram is frightening as hell.
Yeah. So here's what we're trying to tell you, gang, is if you're struggling with that, it's totally normal. It truly is. And I've often joked with people is the imposter syndrome is real. Like, to be honest, if you don't have imposter syndrome, you are an imposter, is my personal opinion. It is real at whatever level you're going to, it will be there. And the thing is to sometimes you just have to lean into it and just do it anyways and get through it. And if it just helped one person, like if it just helps one person, our conversation today may just help one person in Sudbury, Ontario, to take the next step, to maybe look at something, and maybe they own a piece of property, and maybe they're going to go down to the city hall and they're going to maybe look and see, maybe they can put a garage suite on it, and they're just going to change their life because of just maybe one thing that we said today.
Absolutely. I love that, Russell. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's what it is. And that's what drove me to want to do it. I know, like I said, it's been incremental, but real estate has changed my life because I've changed it. And I know other people can do the same. They don't have to do something just because it's the way they were told it should be done.
Yeah. Now, I'd be remiss and I'm going to ask this before I ask you a couple final questions, but if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best place to get a hold of Chris?
Probably through Facebook or Instagram. Facebook, you mentioned Chris Smith. You might have trouble finding me, but I am friends with Russell, so you can look there. Otherwise, Instagram, it is Mr._Christopher Smith is my handle there. And I'm fairly active on both of those accounts. I am on LinkedIn as well, but it has a lot more of my sales career activity than this type of material. So I would say Facebook or Instagram.
Okay, perfect. No website yet?
Not for that. No, my wife and I have Everbloom Enterprises is our real estate business, and we do have a website for that. You won't find a lot there right now other than some booking links to a short-term rental that we have and a little bit of a landing page, I guess.
And you guys were doing some events out in Saskatoon there, kind of, monthly or every second month. Are you still putting some live meetups together?
We are, yeah. We were going to host one this month, and we decided that in conjunction with the property closing and some other busy work that we'd put it off till probably mid-February. But we do host a real estate meetup in town here. There's two. There's Regs, which Travis hosts or manages, and ours. And so we kind of offer both ends of the spectrum as far as networking and education goes. So I encourage anyone in the area to reach out to us or to the Regs group to find out when the latest events in town are.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, if I'm ever making my way out to go see mom and dad again, maybe we'll coordinate some calendars and maybe throw me on a stage and let me, I always look like everywhere I go to travel, I always like to potentially get on stage because, my accountant says that's good for write-off. So
that's right. Absolutely. You let me know and we'll make sure it happens.
Right on. Well, okay. Now the final question I'm going to ask it, and I know you listen to the podcast a lot, so you kind of know what's coming. But before I do ask it, I just wanted to offer something to you. And I've offered this earlier, but I just wanted to just reiterate is I am thoroughly inspired, thoroughly impressed of who you are showing up on a day-to-day basis. From our first conversation to how you're showing up here today has been nothing short of complete transformation. Now, I know when we first talked, all that was inside of you already. I know it was inside of you. But what has happened over the course of the last 2 years is what was been inside is now coming out. And I'm telling you, it's as inspiring as heck, my brother. So keep going.
That's really something, Russell. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah. And it comes from the heart because us people from Saskatchewan don't have time to bullshit. So
that's right. Even if we did, we wouldn't bother.
That's right. So, and it's often I joke around. I sit there and go, I remember a story when I was going back home and mom and dad, and we were out at the golf course and all the guys are all sitting around there at the golf course and just a simple way of life. And they're sitting there. And I look down the road and there's like eight guys sitting there. Nobody's talking. Everybody's having their beer. And just after post round, and I say, geez, I go, there's not a lot, not much conversation going on here. And one guy looks over and he goes, yeah. And if the wind wasn't blowing, we'd only have half the things to talk about too. Sometimes I go home to Saskatchewan just to be a person again. Right.
Yeah. It's a humble place like we talked about near the start.
Yep. All right. Last question. If somebody was sitting here and they've been watching this and, an hour and 10, 15 minutes in of this, and they're maybe feeling a little bit stuck, right? They're just not sure what's the next step for them. What advice would you, over a coffee, would you give that person to help them get unstuck and take the next step for them?
Well, the first step would be getting on that coffee with somebody like yourself or myself or another mentor that they see fit. But post that, I would suggest that maybe some of the stuff that's making them stuck is actually a reflection of their own internal beliefs. Our environment's a reflection of ourselves. And if your environment's not conducive to the things that you want, you really start to need to look at yourself. And when you do that, and you start to change your attitude, you'll find that your environment changes and the opportunities change and things start to unfold before you. And so as hard as that is for a lot of people to hear, is if you're feeling stuck, you really got to start to look inward.
Interesting. So if I paraphrase what you said, first of all, get yourself with somebody that can have the conversation with, look internal, and then from the internal, something external to help you get unstuck will come.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that's a good summary. And chances are you're going to need some help to remove the blinders to be able to see those things. I know I did.
Wow. Well done. Well, my friend, one of the things I like doing on my podcast is I like following up with people that I believe are absolutely thoroughbreds, rising stars that are going to continue to just keep crushing it. I think your stock, if you will, has just started rising and there is so much more upside for you. And do you mind if we follow up on maybe in a year or so and love to hear the next progression of what you're doing?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I think it'd be a good gut check for me to listen to this in a year and take it as a reflection point.
Well, let's keep that as some accountability and some positive pressure for you that in a year there better be a new story to tell.
That's right, exactly. And I think, if I'm the stock, does that make Becky the jockey?
Well, maybe. Yep.
I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
Well, let's take stock as maybe the stock market rising. She's the stock broker, and she's buying in, right? She's sitting there going, let's make sure the operations is going really well here, and making sure you're pointed in the right direction to just keep going, right?
Yeah, maybe so.
Right on. Okay, Chris, appreciate your time. Grateful for this. And gang, wherever you've listened to this or whatever platform you're on, if you found some inspiration or something that just really resonated with you, share it with somebody else. Okay, bye for now, everybody. Boom! If you'd like to see a few more videos like this, only a couple simple next steps from here. Number 1, subscribe. There will be a link right down here to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss an upcoming episode. And over here will be a hand-picked playlist and a video for you to watch to continue your journey forward. All right, let's go!